everyone. For this video, I will be discussing the video conference our class had with Andrew Pollack on Tuesday, November 13th. For those of you who don't know, Andrew Pollack was the father of Meadow Pollack, a senior who was murdered during the Parkland shooting. Ever since the attack, he's expressed his views on school safety and politics on different platforms. Watching his interviews in preparation for this conference was interesting because the mainstream media tends to focus on the crusade for gun control and March for Our Lives more so than school safety. However, his stance on the issue of school shootings is that we should focus on the safety aspect because effort towards gun control legislation these past years has been counterproductive. And the topic of school safety shouldn't be polarized, according to Pollack. I did some more research during my own time and checked out his website and Twitter. In his plan, he mentioned arming teachers, which in my opinion should not be allowed. And on his Twitter, he constantly called out liberals and their policies, which he claimed to quote-unquote cause the tragedy. Just looking at his interviews and tweets alone, I was under the presumption he was a narrow-minded, radical conservative. And I came into the conference ready to confront him, provided the evidence, but I was a bit nervous because Pollack is very outspoken. When the conference began, Pollack discussed the background of the incident and brought to our attention things we didn't know. He talked about how the perpetrator of the crime, whom he refers to as 1958, had made several threats and developed a notoriety among the community for being troubled. We were also informed about how the staff fell that day and how the security and guards let him through the gates even though he was holding a large bag and they knew who he was. We then touched base upon the quote-unquote Democrat policies implemented by the school, which allowed students like him to get away with the things they did that put other students in harm. Pollack mentioned that although he wasn't completely in favor of these policies, if they had been implemented correctly, his daughter would still have been alive today. One point we talked about was how some students with special needs are often placed with students they shouldn't be grouped with. Pollack stated that there are some students with special needs that can be integrated into regular classrooms or their own specialized classrooms, while some, who may be a danger to others, need extra attention and can't be left to their own devices. 1958 had made several threats to the school, but he was never held accountable legally. Pollack said that this was a democratic tactic from the town to show that they had a low crime rate, when in reality unlawful happenings were occurring, but no one was holding 1958 or other criminals accountable. The underlying message was that regardless of mental stability, people must be held liable for their crimes. Another thing we wanted to talk about was arming teachers. Now, I personally feel that some teachers can't be trusted with guns, and the idea of a teacher countering an active shooter seems extreme, but we wanted to see how he would defend it considering he mentioned it in interviews. I was expecting him to talk about how teachers should be ready to act in times like these, but in his response, he actually said he wasn't completely in favor of every teacher having a gun, and he said he'd prefer armed guards to be the ones to act. He then told us about the optional course set up in the state of Florida, which runs for 140 hours and has a dropout rate of approximately 50%, because the course was designed to be very difficult. He also said mostly teachers with law enforcement or military background complete the course, so basically the idea wasn't as radical as we had presumed. All in all, the conference went very well, and I'm glad we got to speak with Pollack and get clarification on many things, because watching his interviews and reading his tweets alone were not enough to get a full understanding of what his agenda was. Regardless of whether or not I agree with his views, it was important for me to be in an environment which circulated great conversations and questions while hearing his ideas which aren't fully portrayed by the media.